What's up, guys? This is Sam Simmons taking over the Before the Cut podcast. Here to you today to talk to you about crypto, NFTs, shitcoins, and everything in between. Let's get to it.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Before the Cut. We are here today on another beautiful Monday with a guest.
Special guest.
Shout out if you guys have been OG subscribers. You've seen this beautiful face before you. I think this time no mustache, but
I'm back, baby.
Clean shaven. Clean shaven.
Fresh. Nice cut, by the way.
It's the bear market look.
Yeah, I'm surprised I haven't shaved my head yet, bro, after the lows that's been going on, but we're going to get into it. We got Sam Simmons here. Let's give it up real quick.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, very happy to be here. Thank you, guys. And we were talking about this just a minute ago, but
teach us how to make some money.
Oh, you teach me. It's the blind leading the blind here.
Make money.
No, but I'm very happy to be here. I talk about this stuff a lot more than my wife would certainly like. But my first time talking about this publicly was on your show a year or so ago. So it's funny. It's funny how all roads lead back to this conversation. Which I'm really excited for it. And while so much has changed, a lot has stayed the same. And I'm excited to kind of recap what we had discussed then. And
for sure,
what's the vibe going forward?
The last time we spoke, well, first of all, bro, check out the new studio, bro. New studio,
very
new
nice.
space.
You're growing up right in front of my eyes.
Price is going up.
So proud.
Yes, sir.
Price going up for sure. Evan and I have been speaking about this in the past week. Our minds have been going crazy. Spoke to you a little bit about it. AI and the different things that are coming about it. Obviously, this technology has been around for a long time. But now, at least in this example, in Chat GPT, I want to know your thoughts how this affects things moving forward.
Yeah, I think it changes everything.
Yeah.
But maybe not in the way that people think that it will. I think so AI being artificial intelligence, I think people have this vision of like Terminator, and AI becoming sentient and revolting against their human overlords and becoming the more optimal species, leading to the downfall and extinction of humans. I think we're overestimating. Here we go. AI that exists today is actually quite simple, including this Chat GPT. Is it GPT? GP3? I forget.
I think it's PT.
Whatever. And so it's by OpenAI, who's been around for a number of years creating AI. And how I think about it is basically a digital personal assistant. So it makes a lot of operations to the categories you mentioned that are operational, administrative, art. It makes them 10 times more efficient. So literally it's basically, it's like you would search Google for something, but rather than the next step in Google, which I think that's the real business at stake right now, is search, where unlike the traditional search flow, which we all love Google, you search something and you comb through your answers of, your top search results, and then you find what you need, whether it be a how-to video, what is Bitcoin, all of these things. Yeah. This becomes a bot that removes that step in the process, where it's like anything that I need, it's a prompt away, and the AI combs all that, does the work for me in scanning through Google as a search engine, and provides me with the answer point blank.
Yeah. Essentially kind of what it looks like if people don't know, like it literally pops up like a Google search bar.
Yeah.
You can type in, I don't know, like, explain to me the difference between fluorescent lighting and LED lighting. And within seconds, it breaks down exactly what you asked for.
If you think about that as a Google search, what is the difference? You could find a Wikipedia article or something on there, and you could read through it and be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I'm doing that for all my gift shopping. Is like, what do I get my mom for Christmas? Like, give me gift ideas to give to my mom. They spits out ideas. Half of them are shit. And I say, okay, well, she likes A, B, C, X, Y, Z. Well, if she likes those things, then she'll probably like this. And I can have a full dialogue to get me to a point where I'm getting answers, and it makes my life better that way. And that's only the chat iteration of AI, because this applies to so many different things. So artwork is a big space right now where AI is booming. We're all seeing the whole Lensa thing that people have decided to make viral for whatever reason.
But I know you for sure made a Lensa.
No, I haven't done one.
You have, guaranteed.
No,
guaranteed, bro.
You want to see him?
But it's there's a lot of, I think. Well, first off, I'll say it's incredible in how fast people are taking to it as a technology, because there's a stat, like it's the fastest growing app ever. The chat bot and Lensa, I don't know the data on it, but it's got to be up there as well. But people are just fascinated by it. So we talked, I think maybe since we've been recording or before we got on, about the shiny new toy, and this is now crypto's old news. Now the shiny new toy is AI. So how are we going to utilize it? And I don't think that chat bots and this profile pictures that are basically a Snapchat filter are really going to be like the end use case to this. But you could see where it could go and how many industries it could disrupt. And I have a hard time even imagining it because this is not my area of expertise, although I like to engage with the technology as a fanboy.
Yeah.
But it's unbelievable what it could become. And frankly, like the industries that it could disrupt in so many ways.
Yeah, I mean, even in like, poker, right? I'm familiar with at least kind of, maybe not AI, but certain algorithms where you can plug in a certain situation that you're in and it'll spit out probability exactly what you should have done in that situation, right? So it's not that much different than these type of things. Where it is fascinating is I've seen it, people will type in there to write out a code for this and it does it within seconds, right?
Yeah.
So I've seen it do, this is another crazy example. It was, hey, write up a real estate lease in South Carolina in this zip code for 2 years for this tenant and whatever. And it did the whole, because it understood the laws in that state and everything, and it did it within seconds. What's stopping somebody from writing trading code for crypto? Or
nothing.
A trading for stocks for everything they have.
No, there's already like auto trader stuff going on out there.
A company that our VC invested into they're still stealth, so they haven't like announced publicly yet, but they're like an algo trading platform. Like they have a AI driven robot that tracks sentiment and then makes trading decisions based upon those inputs. But it's all based upon inputs. Like I think, and that's where I think we tend to give too much credit to AI in general, because we have this image of like them being sentient and like talking to it like a person, but ultimately it's only as good as the inputs that are put into it. And it requires so much data, so much training. So the output is a single sentence output. It's like, oh yeah, like that's great. But like to your example of outputting a lease for a apartment in North Carolina, like if you wanted to go to Google, you could find a template for that elsewhere on the internet. It's just the AI is pulling that for you based upon having scrubbed all of these search results in the past and every corner of the internet to become the inputs for what the chatbot is. There was an incident a few weeks ago, I guess not a few weeks ago, a few months ago now, where there was a big digital art competition and there was a bunch of entrants, and then the winning piece, they won, and then it came out that it was AI generated. So they had not actually done like digital pen or brush, created it. They had done an input into the system and then fine tuned it with additional prompts, and then that outputted. I think it was on Midjourney that they created it, perhaps. Anyways, a lot of people would say, well, that defeats the purpose of art. That removes the need for artists. Like, what is art anymore? But I tend to think of it like I don't think AI replaces the attorney. I think it replaces the pen that the attorney uses to draft documents. I don't think it replaces the artist. I think it replaces the brush that they're using to paint a picture. Like, it is ultimately a tool, and tools have evolved for centuries, for millennia, from the days of cavemen using chalk on walls to the digital canvases that we see today. Like, it's only as good as the inputs that the artist, the attorney, whoever the profession may be, gives it. So I think that's kind of like, that's the biggest error that I've seen in how people think about it so far, is thinking of it as like an endpoint of like, all right, well, fuck it. Like we don't need attorneys anymore. We don't need artists anymore. Like we have the AI now.
I look at like, when you speak of inputs, I think of like, people always say, oh, robots are going to, take over all these jobs that, humans do today. Like I believe McDonald's in Europe, there's no people taking your order. It's just straight kiosks. Okay, so is the next step going to be, there's no people taking your order? Is robots going to be in the back, making like your double cheeseburger? So I think, to your point, when it comes to input, there's still going to be that human work involved, but it's going to be work put into different areas. There's going to need to be the human that is putting the input to program these robots and make sure obviously these kiosks are doing whatever.
It is a totally, that's a great point, and it's a rapid distribution of resources, which I think is ultimately the real outcome of all of this.
It's like a shuffle of where the work's going.
Where do you spend your manpower, and where, and on the side of younger people, where do you spend your education? Like what, where like, and that's the thing. Like I don't have kids yet, but the first thing I'm doing is like putting them in coding school and like getting them into these sectors to be like that's like a lot of, I think it's like a cliche to get your kid into sports and like want them to be like a D1 athlete. It's like, fuck it. Like, no, you're going to be building games and playing video games growing up and you're going to like it. Like, like that's like what Roblox is and everything. And that's just, it's the new way of the world, I think. And this is only the beginning of whatever that ultimately is.
Bro, I saw this. It was like what we're seeing right now is like the tip of this, because I guess not Bloomberg. Forbes wrote an article about this exact same company a year ago. Yeah, you know what I mean, and it just recently was open. But I've spoken to people. I think I mean I don't never mind. But I've spoken to people that they've known about this specific thing for like a year and a half. So I do agree that it is by the input. But if there are millions of people using it in the first 3 days, how much exponentially has it gotten better from day 7 to day 1?
So not much, I think is the answer. So it's funny actually, if you because the AI was trained like at least 6 months, if not a year ago. So if you were to ask it about like what happened yesterday, what happened on December 10th, 2022, whatever the date is, it might be the 12th, but let's say it happened the 11th of December, 2022. It wouldn't know. Like it couldn't give you a coherent answer because it was trained based upon a moment in time, which occurred several months back, which again goes back to the inputs. Like it's not only is it not dynamic in its own right beyond what humans are feeding it, but it's not necessarily able to learn in real time yet. So it's tempering expectations to say like this isn't like anything crazy. It's basically a reskin of a search engine. Of like, we're saving you the time of actually having to browse results, but we're giving you the result as a coherent answer, which seems groundbreaking at first glance. And yes, it is groundbreaking in the AI and being able to pull these results for you in a way that actually gives you what you want versus something entirely random. However, it's rather one-dimensional in what it could actually revolutionize. But when you start to introduce these other mechanics like the machine learning, like the true scale into other industries and I think like niche specific type stuff, it gets very interesting very quickly. And then if you were to pair AI with robotics, then shit gets weird. Then I can't rule out a Terminator like scenario of AI taking over the world. That Will Smith.
And then you mix in the fact we talked about Neuralink on last week's episode, and then you got not only like the robots out there, but then you got us humans. We throwing a chip up in there too.
Oh yeah. And it's all linked.
It's all linked.
Fuck, that's so crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. So who knows where it goes? Yeah. But it's been fun to watch for sure.
Cool. So just to kind of get away from this a little bit. No, but the first time we spoke, it was actually I want to say it was probably my first interview. I remember you, and I told the story in the last podcast. You sat in my chair and you were like, "Chewy, you're gonna like this, bro. I just spent X amount on," and you showed me this picture, and that's where the whole. At least my curiosity and my whole
on a picture,
on the there's an orange
that
cat.
aged poorly.
At that time, crypto was at all-time high. NFT was at all-time high. All the exchanges, everything was going well, and now we are here, right? Liquidity and where you buy NFTs is down 90-95%,
monumentally down.
Yeah,
down horrendously.
Yep. We're in a kind of like a little hurricane category 7 situation right now. So I guess what are your thoughts, bro, on this current state that we're in, and how do we get from all-time highs to right now?
I didn't even know there were 7 categories to hurricanes.
Is there what tornadoes? Tornadoes is 7.
I thought it was 5.
I think it's 5. My bad. That's how bad it is,
Have
bro.
we found a new category? Are we skipped 6 entirely?
Bro, that's how bad we're in. Right now we're barely keeping.
Oh no! I kid. And I you said thank you in there, and it's saying thank you for getting someone into NFTs about a year ago. Maybe not be the right words, but misery loves company. So here we are.
Yes, we do.
So yeah, I mean, things aren't great right now. Just to be forthright about it, and I think to poke some fun at that story, I think during that time there was a lot of stories like that where someone went in to get a haircut and came out and someone else had bought an NFT and that person shared with other people and then they bought an NFT. Next thing you know, you kind of have this pyramid of people buying NFTs. But what happens when the infrastructure of that pyramid starts to crumble and macroeconomic factors, macro geographical factors, political factors sway towards the negative, and you have Russia-Ukraine happening and all sorts of uncertainty around the world, and all of a sudden the JPEGs seem a lot less important. And what's to go first but speculative assets? And that is something that I said on the prior podcast a year ago, which ended up being a little bit of a negative, bad omen or predictive omen, but basically how crypto assets are a volatile asset in response to other volatile assets. And in particular, let's take the example of NFTs being responsive to crypto, which is reactive, I should say, to the traditional securities market, which is reactive to the geopolitical climate of the world and all these other sorts of factors, where as things get more volatile, as you go down this chain of reactions, the last thing is, let's say, the most speculative of speculative assets right now, which is NFTs. So it's going to get weird out there, and weird it has been over the past year or so.
When you mentioned, you go into the barbershop, you tell somebody, bro, I was telling everybody and their moms, I'm like, you got to get on this. I think I told Evan, I'm like, bro, you got to get you some of these, bro. I was like, our friends, I was like, bro, buy 10, bro. Trust me, we're going to be rich.
The first one I heard of the whole whole NFT crash going on, Justin Bieber, big name, right? Bought a Bored Ape $1.3 million. And this was, a lot of this stuff happened late October, early November. And I remember one of the headlines right off the bat. That's when I was just like, damn, this is like, it was 1.3 million. And I think it was worth like 69 grand or something.
So that's an interesting case study because, well, let's take the day that he bought it, because I know exactly which ape it is. It has a black T-shirt on. I think it's brown colored. There's nothing rare about it, which is kind of the funny part, is that
What do you mean?
He paid a premium for that ape compared to what you could get off the floor, which would be the cheapest entry point for the Bored Apes. And the one he bought is nothing special. Like he could get a similar one with that black T-shirt, with that brown fur for probably 20 to 25% of what he bought that one for at the time. Whoa. So that one made a big splash, not only outside the community to people like yourself who were seeing it from afar, but even inside, it's like, what is going on? But I think that therein lies an interesting fact about why people buy NFTs. Justin Bieber doesn't give a shit about how much it costs or whether he's overpaying for a rare one. Or not rare one, I should say. He's doing it because it's his identity, and he sees this as this is an ape that I like. This is an ape that I want to represent me as an artist, as a person, and I'm willing to pay a premium for that. So there's an interesting sort of case study to me there, and I don't think we're able to scale that phenomenon just yet, but I promise you that Justin Bieber isn't sweating the price of his ape right now, and he has the luxury of not having to sweat it, unlike a lot of people, but. That's just it's like a red herring, I think they call it, to point out that as a negative story, because he didn't buy it as an investment, he bought it for his identity, and you have to separate those two things.
Doesn't that hurt the legitimacy of that project though? If people are just buying it for whatever for no reason, like I understand paying that for a rare ape, whether it's top 25, top 10%, but just to buy it just because, doesn't that almost become like like a Gucci T-shirt, like it's just because it has the big letters in the front?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think being the Gucci T-shirt of NFTs is a bad thing necessarily. Like I think there's a brand there. I think that the whole storyline of him paying 1.3 million and now worth $70,000 isn't exactly true. But that in of itself is just not a great headline. So to outside onlookers who aren't going to obviously go through the research of calculating exactly what that loss differential would be, it doesn't look great. But it goes back to me. I think it's around shifting the conversation and changing the focus of why people are, and frankly, in my mind, should be buying these things. I think we're past the point of NFTs as investment mechanisms, at least in a broad sense, but rather using it as a networking tool, an identity tool, a community tool, which I have incurred a lot of value in myself. And I think Justin Bieber may not be actively in communities redeeming that value as I might be, but the identity piece is huge, and it's hard to measure the actual value of that from an ROI perspective.
So go ahead.
No, I feel like when NFTs first came out, I really feel it was almost like a hype thing. It was like having like the hottest brand or hottest new pair of sneakers or something like that. Like I remember people buying them, and Chewy, you're actually guilty of this. People were literally buying NFTs just so they could put it as their Instagram profile picture. It was like literally like a craze. Like it reminded me when, and we'll get into this more, but like the launch of NFTs, how quick it got big, and then obviously the fall of it now a little bit, just with what the market is. It reminded me of like a one-hit wonder. And I think you got all those people that are, anti-crypto, anti-NFT, sitting there like, told you so.
People, always looking for, if you already hate something, you're going to find something. You'd be like, see, so I told you guys this is dumb, shouldn't be doing that. But can you expound a little bit more, bro, about like if it's not about making money, then what's the other side of why people should still be buying these?
Yeah, sure. So the profile picture thing, there's that was what I referenced around identity. And in its simplest form, changing your profile picture, but in a more complex macro way, it's about affiliating yourself and aligning yourself with a subset of individuals in such a way that says something about you as a person. So the example that I like to share is in the world of sports. So we all are used to the phenomenon at a much cheaper scale in terms of a cost per entry point. We're all familiar with going into our favorite team store and buying a jersey, not for necessarily like I could put on anything with the same material, put it on my body, but the fact that it represents my team, my favorite team, and then in turn that says something about me and my loyalty as a fan. That is important to us as humans. So it's basically taking that phenomenon of turning, I guess, and that's ultimately what fandom is. It's aligning yourself with a group of individuals based upon the team that you like, whether that be because of your favorite players on that team, the geography, or whatever else. But it is a outward facing symbol that says something about your loyalty, your passions, your fandom in such a way that aligns you with a group of fellow fans. Now, this is very similar in a digital way. So I hold this asset. I publish that asset via my profile picture on Twitter, Instagram, whatever it may be. And then that says something about me. And every project will have its own values and its own meaning to it, its own purpose that will then reflect back on you as a holder of that project. And I'll caveat to say that's all very fluffy, but like, what is the practical reason for this? And I'll give you an example of that. So since we last talked, we talked about Bored Apes back then a lot, and I still hold the apes that I had previously. A few months ago, I ended up buying into CryptoPunks, which is one of those, it's one of those like, it's the oldest profile picture project. They were created in 2017. Bored Apes were only created like middle of 2021. So a few years prior. They were different in their trajectory though, where CryptoPunks were stagnant for a long time and then took off last year. Bored Apes kind of took off around that same time, and they were neck and neck for a while. Bored Apes eventually actually surpassed CryptoPunks in terms of price, and now they're kind of about even again. But I found myself, as I more matured in my career in this world of Web3, those became like the OGs. Like if that's your profile picture, like you're a crypto native and you're an OG in the space, and I felt like I had earned that right. Now, getting to then the utility of that. So let's say in my line of business on LinkedIn, there's very few people in this world that I could reach out to and not get a response from just because of my profile picture. I'm not trying to be a douche by saying that. That's just like, I'm respected because of that being put forward and that being part of my brand. But I'll say even further than that. So I sent you these publications. You know, Real Vision Crypto. I sent you some videos in the past. Raoul Powell is the guy's name. So like, I'm in a Telegram chat with 500 plus people, and like that guy has been like, that guy dropped in like days ago and been very active in it. Mike Shinoda from Lincoln Park, he's in that chat. So like, I'm actively rubbing shoulders with not only like Web3 crypto influencers, celebrities, but celebrities, like actual famous people that similarly, I don't think it's weird that I'm even having the sentence. I don't think Odell Beckham Jr. is in that chat, but he was a famous CryptoPunk holder. So people like that, where it gives you access. Like it gives you access to a network, and the ROI of that's hard to measure because the deal, like for example, on the venture capital side, before I shut up and stop talking about this, I've gotten access to like major deal flow, major opportunities just because of my profile picture. So it is very easy and simple to say like, oh, it's just a JPEG Instagram profile picture. But the access that can bring you and the legitimacy that brings you in various walks of life is somewhat priceless and really immeasurable.
And you know, to your point there, you know, I look at NFTs. It's a 2022 digital fan club. And it almost like, you know, to your point, it's like this exclusive access. You know, I see celebrities doing this all sorts of different ways. Musicians, I've noticed, musicians, you know, they're almost using NFTs where like, you know, you buy into their NFT projects and, you know, they're using it as a tactic of like, okay, hey, we're going to release exclusive music to this group of people. We're going to let these guys come do like meet and greets. You know, I know people, you know, big name entrepreneurs that are using NFTs where, you know, hey, if you're part of this NFT, you know, it's like, you know, the millionaire meetups.
Yeah. I mean, there's a great use case in that applies to not only just like artists and musicians, but also like to create, like nurturing their fandoms, but brands as well. I think of it as almost turning in a brand sense, turning your customers into advocates by turning their purchase behavior and their affiliation to your brand as an asset. So it becomes like a badge of honor for me where it's no longer just I like Gucci t-shirts, so I'm going to go buy Gucci t-shirts. It is, I am one of 1,000 people that owns this particular Gucci t-shirt, and thus I'm going to make this a core part of my identity. And everyone that I come across in my digital interactions, I want them to see, hey, I have this Gucci t-shirt. Obviously, substitute NFT
and because
for
you have that, you get this exclusive access.
Correct. And all these benefits that come with it. And then even further, unlike you would see with the traditional membership club subscription, let's say, it's an asset. Like I can then, if I, let's say, you move on with your life, so to speak, and you have a family and you're not necessarily engaging with the Gucci brand all the time in the same lifestyle type of way you would as a younger person. You then sell it to someone else who's a Gucci fan in their own right and wants to buy into their core membership base, their core fandom base. So it's interesting in that regard. And I think and that's where you get back into use cases. That's really where my focus has been throughout these turbulent market conditions is, okay, like we have less of a microscope on us right now in these crazy headlines with Justin Bieber buying Bored Apes and so on. And the focus is more on, okay, what is the long-term viability of this technology and where does it bring us? And what industries does it revolutionize? And I think like brand loyalty is a major one in that regard of basically reinventing the punch card in a way of, you know, buy 10 sandwiches, get one free, turning what I think of as, like I said, turning fandom into advocacy through NFT technology.
Yeah, I think it's cool too, because like some of the projects that I'm in, you know, they're not nearly on that scale, right? But it is cool seeing and being in these rooms digitally with people who want to build this community just as bad as you do.
And that's the hard part about the current market climate is the strongest communities it's easy to be a strong community in great market conditions when everyone's happy, everyone's making money, there's nothing really to complain about. But when shit hits the fan, it's like, all right, you know, what's our purpose? What is our long-term vision? Who actually wants to be here and who's just trying to make a buck? Because you know, that would happen during the bull market where everyone says, I'm not selling, a delist.
Everybody and their moms.
But in reality, there's always an ulterior motive because the less people sell, the higher the floor price goes up, and thus the higher the entry point is to get in, and thus everyone's asset is worth that much more. So it's kind of this like fake sort of community hoorah, but only for the purposes of everyone making money. Whereas when no one's making money, it's like, fuck community. Get me out of here. So it's interesting to watch, but at the same time, it gives you a lot of long-term promise for the communities that do withstand it. And
survival of the fittest out there.
Exactly. And those do exist. And it's been nice to see some weather the storm and in a selfish way, kind of nice to see those that weren't going to be long-term viable anyways end up faltering through all this.
So do you see a time where, you know, things kind of go back to those type of highs like in this space? Or
I mean, it's never in the same way, in my opinion. And as I always do, this is not financial advice. This is my opinion. I don't know anything. I think that was it was a phase that mimicked a lot of prior phases in crypto, whether it was the shitcoin frenzy, the DeFi summer of a couple years ago. it's it's rinse and repeat type stuff, and every time this happens, it's like you find this new way to utilize the technology that everyone just kind of goes all in on, and that's the new shiny object that everyone wants to buy into.
Yeah.
But then you realize, wait, like there's no actual real use for this shiny object, and then it goes to zero. So I'm not saying that in a broad sense, and there's certainly, you're going to have the 5% of projects born 2021 and before that end up surviving and thriving in the long term. And I do think that a lot of these, like CryptoPunks, like Bored Apes and others, they eventually come back to maybe not the same levels as we saw previously, but at least close to it. But again, as someone who holds these, I'm also saying I'm not really sweating it because I'm getting so much value out of it without it needing to necessarily appreciate and value. And that to me says something about the thesis. And you could go into the dynamics of, okay, there's X number of billionaires and millionaires in the world. If this finds a way to have that much value in the long term, such that all those individuals then see value in getting involved as well, then that leads to price appreciation. And I'm not making my decision contingent upon that, but I do see a world in the possible array of outcomes where the top 1% of projects in the NFT space, past and present, they do become very valuable in the long term.
Yeah. Last question, and then we can move on to the next topic. Sure. But if COVID didn't happen, do you think we would have seen that big jump in both crypto and NFTs?
Not to the extent. I don't want to say yes or no. I mean, crypto had booms before without COVID, so it's not like this is necessarily a new thing that people love to gamble with magic internet beans, but it helped.
Magical internet beans.
It helped that people were all stuck at home, bored, with nothing to do, with all of a sudden fresh cash in their pocket from old Uncle Sam with the stimmy.
Bro, all these fucking 15-year-olds like, you want to bake, $7,000. Yeah. Everybody's just glued to their phone.
But we saw it with GameStop too. We saw it with all like in the traditional securities market. Like this was not necessarily a crypto only thing. This was just people. Sure. Just acting a fool for a few months there, especially with the market spinning up. But because everyone was just making money hand over fist for a while, and everyone's an expert when everyone's winning.
Robinhood was like the #1 app on the App Store. Everyone and your brother and sister were buying stocks. Everyone was on Coinbase.
Yeah.
Like,
everybody was a guru at that time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What are you up to? Just doing some trading.
Yeah. It's insanity.
All right, so I think we are all guilty of getting sucked into the quote unquote shit coins during our wonderful couch time during COVID.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, any shitcoin stories you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, there's more than I could count, and frankly, more than I'm willing to share out of sheer embarrassment. It's funny because a lot of these things, I'm obviously very involved in this world, and they call it alpha or attempted alpha, where you get something, you get an insider secret that no one else knows, and then that leads to some buy decision, which makes you a lot of money. So we sit in these group chats all day, just sending things back and forth. Hey, did you see this coin? Did you see that coin?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times, but you also have to consider the source, because you could assume everything is alpha, but then you quickly find out that once you actually buy it, it wasn't so much alpha. It was actually terrible advice.
Yeah.
So with shitcoins, that happens a lot, where you have like a 10% chance of hitting, where you could see astronomical gains, but there's a 90% likelihood that things go to zero, and that's just the game that you play. So I think my favorite true shitcoin would be in response. I believe Elon Musk had tweeted in response to McDonald's at one point. I think it was when crypto was going bad, and the running joke is like, I got to get a job at McDonald's. And
Elon's kind of known for this.
Yeah, no, he's a
those
true
tweets. I tell you,
he's a true shitcoin connoisseur. What helps he can move the market too, like he can. But he tweeted about there's a character in McDonald's called Grimace, and it's the big purple nugget looking thing. And so naturally, degens on the internet created Grimace coin, and all the Telegram channels go and pump to it. I was put onto it, and I put a few $1,000s into it. And then you play this. I don't know if you know the scene from Indiana Jones, where he has the sandbag above the weight, where he's like trying to like carefully put it on. There's like that moment of sort of balance with shit coins where you buy in, then you see it going up, and it's so easy to be like, I want to take this to the moon, but then just as fast, if not faster, things come crashing down. So I was watching it, and then I'm seeing it rise,
bro.
I think I had to go to the gym or something, or I had something in my evening where I'm like, all right, we'll leave this up. It'll all be good. I go to the gym. I'm kind of sweating it a little bit, and then I go to do a set. Next thing I know, red candle.
Oh shit!
I go running back, and by the time I was like situated, like ready to like move my money out, it was all gone. So,
Yeah,
bro, that's
full rug, and that's just, but that's just you take the good with the bad, and that's the game I was playing, and I was ready to play it.
Curious on like your thoughts there. Influencers and celebrities getting involved on, like a lot of these shit coins, truthfully.
Yeah. I mean, I'm generally all for it, but there's so many qualifiers to saying I'm all for it. And there's certain right situations that I would be for it and against it. And in fact, I would say I'm all for it. And then here's the ABC of what you need to do, because there's about 95% of actual executions that I would say that was dumb of you to do. I just to name a few names because they're public. Lana Rhodes was a very famous one.
Who's that, bro?
Oh yeah, it's a name I heard. But she like full, but that was an extreme one because like there was like full ghost, like there was launched and then all of her socials were gone, just like actual rug pull, and we kind of all forgotten about it at this point. But
bro, in that realm of people being taken advantage of, fast forward a little bit from all that stuff to a few weeks ago. FTX.
Sure.
We spoke a little bit about it, but I'm so curious to hear what you're going to say about this. But just for the people who don't know, can you give them a little breakdown about what happened and I guess what led to the demise of FTX?
No, I mean look, I couldn't even. I'm also not like an expert in this stuff, so I couldn't begin to give you like the intricacies of the decentralized or decentralized banking exchange ecosystem and how it all locked in together.
Yeah, it's a whole different world.
This was really a to properly convey how monumental the FTX story is in a negative way for the crypto space would be selling it short. Like I could not put it into words how much of a disaster it is. It is easily the top worst thing to ever happen to crypto. And I'll explain why in a second after I kind of go over the sort of what happened. So basically you have FTX as a centralized exchange, and centralized would be the opposite of decentralized exchange, which would be a truly decentralized open network of participants where I want to come in and exchange my ETH for USDC. I do a swap, and that's from a shared liquidity pool, which is all open and public on the blockchain. And all these core principles of Web3 are embodied in a decentralized exchange. The traditional finance equivalent would be a centralized exchange. So you basically, Coinbase is similar, but
I was going to say Binance is another
Binance,
example.
Coinbase, Crypto.com, all of these. It's basically they hold the accounts for you. It's considered custodial. So your account's not really your account. It's basically held by the equivalent of a bank. Much like you deposit in your bank account at the local Wells Fargo, the dollar you put into that machine, if you take out $1, you're not getting the same dollar back. It's held in a larger pool, which then they go out and issue mortgages and loans, and they do things with that capital under certain protections, of course, as the government has set up for centuries prior, which don't exist today in crypto, which leads to a lot of these issues. So it was basically, I think of it as a bank for crypto. But the point being, it was a bit of a closed door black box of an environment within FTX where no one really knew what was going on, but it's FTX, so you just kind of trust it. So
because they were the biggest one, right?
They're not
pretty
the
close
biggest
to
exchange. They were top 5. I don't know if they were.
Oh, okay.
They were up there. It goes Coinbase, Binance, or maybe Binance, Coinbase. And then like the other big 3 would be like Crypto.com, FTX, Gemini is up there as well.
Right.
I think they're massive though. And I think the point I wanted to end with, but I think it's important to consider as we talk through it all. FTX was, you had the sponsorships from Tom Brady, Steph Curry, all these major athletes. You had FTX on the Super Bowl commercials, although it's Crypto.com. They had like Matt Damon, Fortune Favors the Bold. You had the Miami Heat Arena, FTX Arena. You had FTX. The most like wow moment to me was the World Series last year where FTX is on the umpire's shirt, where it's like you have America's pastime, like the most like the pinnacle of America's purest sport.
America's sport.
Exactly. And then there's FTX right there. And it's like, wow, like that to me was like the moment we made it.
Huge. It was huge. Man.
It was huge. But then in hindsight, I was like, shit. Because imagine how many mom and pop people who had never been exposed to crypto see that and you're like, it must be safe now. It's on the World Series. And they're investing probably not a ton, hopefully, but probably a material amount of the portfolio to add some exposure to the crypto world. And then this happened. So that's going back to it. This is why I think it's the worst, because it's not the degens, perhaps like myself, who are getting burned by it. Like Terra Luna happens. Yeah. And it's like, I lost a significant amount of money, but I'm like, kind of deserved it. Like didn't do full research. Like we were kind of playing with fire there for a bit. I can be honest with myself and say I fucked up. However, when you have like a mom and pop, a Midwest suburban middle-class family that's putting, 10% of their 401k, pulling it out, putting it into FTX, and then they get burned by it. It's like, fuck, like they're never coming back either. Like you've lost them as a crypto user forever, which is really sad for the industry on the whole, and very unfortunate. But anyways, let me then kind of Tarantino this, backtrack and get back to the story there. So basically you had Sam Bankman-Fried, who was running FTX, and it was a bit of a black box of what was exactly happening behind the scenes. There wasn't really a reporting structure for verifying the funds and having I forget the term, but basically a one-to-one relationship between their holdings and customer assets. So as a customer, I know that at any given time, I can pull my money out so that it's safe. And so what happened, that this went on for all. People were obviously depositing into FTX. It was growing. They were pumping the marketing machine. And I think there were two primary catalysts in my mind, and there's been a lot to unfold since then. One, there's just been a gross misappropriation of funds where they were not only taking funds and injecting them into their sister company, Alameda Research, which was making incredibly leveraged bets utilizing customer assets where when they're winning in those bets, when the market's going up, it's great. But when the market's tanking, like those, you lose a lot of that money very quickly. And so you're basically you're essentially gambling on the market with customer money and losing.
Gambling on nothing.
But it's kind of genius, bro, because they're leveraging their own coin from what they borrowed from right?
So that's the second part of the issue, is that a lot of these bets were made with what is essentially magic internet beans, and that's the funny part, and this is one of the fallacies of crypto, and it's hard for me to suspend this reality, because inherently at its core the US dollar is magical internet beans, but it's magical internet paper, not internet paper, but it's magical government paper, where we only assign value to it because our society and our culture, our government says that it has value, and thus I could exchange it for things of value that make my life better, that give me the things that I need. So in those terms, a lot of that can be applied to anything that we deem to be of value, whether that be Bitcoin, whether that be a check that is essentially means the bank, my bank then owes you money. All these things become financial instruments as such, but
God damn, I'm sorry.
So if you take the phenomenon of basically being able to create monetary value or asset value out of thin air, which ultimately that's what our USD, our paper dollar was originally, was value created out of thin air because we all says it has value. You take that to an extreme extent, then you have shit coins.
Well, hold on, because isn't the dollar back like through like the global? That's what you use to buy oil. So it's a big understanding of that's what.
Correct, but that understanding scaled over centuries. Like the dollar has had a very significant head start on Bitcoin, for example, and it's legal tender. Like I'm obviously oversimplifying it, but essentially there is a societal structure that is put in place to give that dollar value, but the dollar itself, in terms of a paper dollar, does not have value without that infrastructure being set up. If that makes sense. So all that being said, Bitcoin, that's the spirit of crypto, is trying to be a digital replacement to that. And really the exact point you mentioned, where the government has their hands in it and it's the government saying that it's worth something, crypto is a response to that, because a lot of people would believe that the government tends to mishandle the printing of the dollar. We saw this over the past couple of years, and that's why we're seeing inflation today, where they printed a bunch, they issued a bunch of stimmy checks, and now we're dealing with record inflation. Neither here nor there, not for the point of this conversation, but crypto, the worst part of crypto has been creating these things of value, at least we perceive them to have value, and making it accessible such that anyone can release a coin. And we can assign a USD value or an Ethereum value, whatever the equivalent is, to that coin, whether or not it has real value or not. And there's more nuance to that, but let's just say in this case, FTX then created a local token, a native token to the FTX ecosystem called FTT. And when FTX was doing well, that token holds some degree of value, much like other crypto assets do. And so they were, to your point, they were making additional leveraged bets through Alameda with their token. But in reality, that token doesn't hold a lot of value if FTX itself doesn't hold a lot of value. Yeah. So it became this house of cards where if one domino, it's like that meme, I don't know if you've seen it, where you have like the small domino and then the big domino, where if like one domino falls and you have Terra Luna, then you have 3 Years Capital, then you have Celsius, all these boom, 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 boom. And next thing you know, like FTX. And so that's basically what happened, where all this panic started being created. And then it was over the span of, I think, like 72 hours where there was a lot of FTX FUD, which would mean fear, uncertainty, and doubt over their solvency, which would be if customers wanted to withdraw, do we have the funds internally to allow them to withdraw? People start to panic. They start to withdraw. So then there was a famous Twitter thread, now infamous, I should say, that SBF put out, where he's telling everyone not to panic. It's all fine. FTX is fully solvent. But he's doing that in crisis management because as more people panic, the more risk it puts them in with people trying to withdraw their funds. So the best thing that he could have done at the time, which he tried to do, was get people not to withdraw. Didn't work. Everyone was withdrawing, and then
probably made it worse.
And then shit hit the fan. And then it came out. They had to file for bankruptcy. They were insolvent. Customers can't get their money back. They had to halt withdrawals because there was no crypto, there was no money left to give back to customers. And obviously I pointed out, just to start things off, like how unfortunate it is for the mom and pop investor. But I think it's worth noting in terms of a larger theme in crypto around decentralization. That's really the spirit of why we're doing this. Bitcoin is decentralized money, and that's what this was supposed to be, and that's what it is today. Now, the first argument for those mom and pops and others who may be naysayers because of FTX, which is very easy to dunk on FTX or dunk on crypto now because of the FTX scandal and say crypto sucks. I told you, like we said about NFTs earlier. But in reality, FTX is operating like a bank, just without the decades and centuries of regulation, FDIC insurance, all these things that are put in place to regulate the banks has never existed in crypto. So, and then I'm not advocating for that either, but I'm more advocating for the response to this fiasco not being necessarily we need to crack down more, but rather we need a different answer than what is like the traditional, in my mind, traditional financial structure, where it's this closed door black box ecosystem where you're injecting your money and just hoping that it's handled correctly. Whereas true, pure, decentralized crypto management would be owning the assets yourself. And I think that's where I see things going in the coming years, is creating we get into a conversation about user experience and how you make that approachable, because we had this when we were getting onboarded in the NFT space, where it's a big pain in the ass to actually buy Ethereum, get it into a MetaMask wallet and go through that process. So how do we make it more approachable? How do we make it safer for people? Because it also begets scams and other sorts of issues where the upside of having autonomy over your assets is you control them entirely yourself, but the downside is that you control them entirely yourself. And it's like having your cash under a mattress, where if someone barges into your home and puts a gun to your head and says, give me all your cash, then you're fucked. Whereas if you have it in a bank, you have a high degree of confidence that the bank is less likely to come to a robbery than you would in your home. But it's forever a trade-off. And it's just, I don't want FTX to be considered a representation of crypto on the whole, when in fact it's a bit more skewed towards the infrastructure of traditional finance than it is towards what crypto is supposed to be.
But like in a very basic level, they weren't really doing anything different when it came to using the money that people were putting in. I think the issue was they weren't either didn't disclose that, or in their terms of agreements they said we'll never touch your money. So I guess that's the different stuff. But something like this, doesn't that kind of prove why there should be a little bit of regulation in crypto?
I think there's. I maybe misspoke there in saying, I'm not anti-regulation by any means. I think what I'm anti of is an overcorrection towards regulation becoming. becoming, I guess, overbearing and again, violating the spirit of everything that crypto is actually supposed to be, which is like user autonomy, privacy, ability to, I mean, the whole value of Bitcoin originally was a private, trustless network where I could send monetary value around the world for very cheap and very quickly. And the more intermediaries, and that was created, I should say, because there are no intermediaries. If you think of like if you were to go into the bank now and, well, it's 4:30 because you can still probably get there on time. But if you were to want to wire some money, you'd have to go to the bank. They might be closed. You could maybe call it in, but then they wouldn't get it to the next business day. And then you're relying on them, the other party, to let you know that it was received. And it's basically like a multi-day process, and you're paying a fee associated with that to wire that money. And you can think of all the people associated with that process, whereas for transferring Bitcoin, it's just inputting your recipient's address and hitting send, and it's a very cheap amount. It gets there immediately.
How different is that from me sending you $20 on Apple Pay?
Well, it's $20 is not is obviously a lower amount.
Yeah.
But all that being said, I mean, the government is trying now to have people report Venmo payments. So like you're starting.
That's just crazy. I forgot about them.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I know. Like, damn, I had him on the ropes.
But that's what we're trying to avoid. And so what I want is sensible regulation, is regulation that actually protects people and not tries to extract from people. And I think that's what the spirit of a lot of the regulation we're looking at is, like, how can we tax people more? How can we make money off of users versus how can we protect them?
So with FTX, if that little data leak, which basically it was like a piece of paper, their financials didn't come out, do you think they would have kept like under the radar? Or do you think that maybe, that was, because I saw this video and it was really interesting, and it was like, somebody got a hold of that, maybe from a competing exchange, and was like, you know what, these guys are kind of, maybe the top dogs, let's let this go, and then kind of like love at war.
Yeah, so I think the competitor exchange you might be thinking would be Binance, where there was a whole Twitter beef
allegedly, I don't know,
over the course of the couple days where CZ and Sam were going back and forth and talking shit to one another in like billionaire speak about their respective exchanges' solvency, and that kind of led to the implosion that became FTX. So do I think that CZ in this case poked the bear a little bit and maybe was a little liberal in his social discourse in such a way that brought on the fall of FTX a bit quicker than it otherwise would have? Maybe. However, if you look at what's come out since then, of like how that not only the misappropriation of funds for leverage trading purposes, but the utter disregard for corporate controls. Like, I'm a single person LLC. I have multiple like small businesses, don't have any employees, but I've worked with companies and had employees there. I have little experience, but there's stuff that he was doing that it's like, I can't even fathom. He was buying his parents' homes in Bahamas. They were public. They had a psychiatrist on staff at their office in Bahamas. They were I guess prescribing all of their employees, or encouraging their employees to take stimulants. Yeah. Like weird, like cult-like behavior. Yeah. Where take whatever, like, sure, pick your poison, both literally and figuratively. Do whatever you want. Work in whatever way is optimal to you. But how he was running things, like, I don't know what kind of runway he had. Like, I don't know how long, especially with like the behavior of spending both on marketing publicly, but also frivolously internally buying houses and stuff for other people. Like I would figure at some point shit would have had to hit the fan. I just don't think it would have been as quickly.
He made it sound like to the public too. Like there's a picture of him like standing in front of his like Toyota Corolla. He
I hate that shit, bro.
So it was like, total. And he was like, oh, I like, live with my friends. And there was like, from like a health standpoint.
He was fucking all of them.
Oh, he said he was vegan?
Yeah, from a health standpoint, it was like, he was like stating like he was vegan, but yet again, like he was standing by like his open fridge and there was like non-vegan, like, eggs in there. So
there was pictures published of him, like he would sleep on a beanbag chair in his office because he just worked so hard. He worked tirelessly to build his empire. But then as this is all played out, you then see like where he was living in Bahamas. This
living like a
massive
king.
estate. It's like
Crazy
ridiculous.
penthouse, bro, yeah.
He definitely he portrayed.
It's like a $40 million like estate. Yeah,
he
it's
portrayed a certain persona. He was the Democrats' biggest donor.
Yep.
He also this actually was a recent development over the past week. I don't want to misquote because I didn't read the full report. I'm guilty of being a social media news consumer. I saw a headline, but he said to a reporter that he was donating to Republican candidates underneath the table through like dark organizations so that publicly he was like the tree hugging, vegan, Corolla, Prius, whatever driving good guy. But in reality, it was all a facade to support his own best interest. And I think that's important to note here because we're seeing this now in real time. He's embarked on this for whatever reason, despite probably his lawyer's advice. He's embarked on this like apology tour of sorts, going on Twitter Spaces, going on Good Morning America, 60 Minutes, saying, I'm sorry. I want to do whatever I can to get customers' funds back. I don't know what happened. I made mistakes. But like when you're managing that much money, you don't just make mistakes. You can't just make mistakes. Like the burden of not being I'm blanking on the word. I'm blanking on it, but not being a dickhead, we'll say, is on you as a manager of $1 billion in assets, and you don't get to just make mistakes.
Right.
Like a guy like this should go to prison.
Go ahead.
like this is a pure example of how money is power. And, like you look at this situation and it's, we've talked about multiple different, big businesses, last couple podcasts, and just how money is being moved between different people, having political ties, what that all does for you. And, to your point earlier, like if this wasn't leaked, like how long would have they got, by with this? Yeah. And now it's like, okay, like what's going to happen to him in this situation? Like, yeah, he might be in the news right now. Yeah, there's all this stuff going on. End of the day, dude, he's given too much money to too many important people. Yeah. And some way, somehow, some stuff's going to get swept under the rug.
How is he not in jail, bro?
So I've seen it's interesting to look at.
How are they not smoking?
A lot of people will compare this to like a Bernie Madoff situation where within 24 hours of his Ponzi scheme becoming public, he was arrested, and SBF still palling around Bahamas doing whatever. This Maxine Waters out of California is just tweeting at him like, "Hey, we'd love if you to came up to DC to join us for this whatever to come tell us what happened." He's like, "Oh, I'll see if I can make it." In fact, I think just today,
stupid ass voice.
Today, he said like, "Yeah, I don't want to be around paparazzi. I've got other commitments. My schedule's busy. I'm just not gonna be able to make it." Yeah. And it's that's where my conspiracy theory starts, and I'm not going to go down too far down that road here, but I don't understand it. We'll just say that. Yeah. Like why? And I mean, we can understand it. Like you just said, there's people are going to be friendly with him because they've been friends for a long time. We'll say, but it's a bad look, and I have a hard time fathoming it. And besides all that, it makes me frankly lose a lot of enthusiasm and confidence in our judicial system at large when someone like this can just be hanging out and meanwhile the government's chasing down people for a $600 Venmo.
Yeah. Do you think that fucking blanked my question? Hold on. Okay. So obviously this disaster, right? Do you think that there are other companies that were maybe towing this line, sort of like maybe doing a little bit what they were doing, but not at this extent? For example, like Binance or Coinbase?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I think,
really?
Yeah, certainly not to that extent. And for that matter, again, the concept at large is not entirely different than a traditional bank. So I don't want to say either that it's just, you have to have, if someone gives you a Bitcoin in this case, you have to keep that there and not do anything with it. Like that's how banks make money. It's having this pool of assets and then using various instruments like mortgages and so on to then drive revenue off other customers' assets, but it's all regulated and it's all monitored and there's reasons why to prevent issues like this. So other companies are definitely doing that. But I think it's about taking a measured approach and a risk-averse approach in doing so. And they just did the opposite of that, where they, again, back to leveraged bets. Investing in things is one thing, but to bet on investments such that you could be entirely wiped out is an entirely different story. So it's hard because so I think as I talk now, my answer I think is no, because not to that extent anyone was doing anything close to that, but people are the centralized exchanges are operating as centralized exchanges, and I think this is like the critical juncture in crypto for users today of like, do you want to have that level of trust in the centralized exchanges today that you don't know what's going on? And as I sit here, I genuinely don't know, or you could do what I've done and pulled everything out. Like I have everything on a little ledger protected device. I have it. They say not your keys, not your crypto. Which when you have your own private keys, there's certain concerns around that, because if someone has your private keys, they can take all of your assets. But if you protect things the right way, then you cannot be more protected than having your asset storage set up that way. And you don't need to worry about what these centralized exchanges are doing because it all lives with you.
Yeah, you have that.
So that's how I've set things up. And I don't really have advice for what people should or shouldn't do. I definitely think in the current climate, there's no one too big to fail. Let's just say. I think we saw similar in the mortgage business back in 2008. Like we're seeing that now in the crypto industry, where FTX, when they're plastered all over the World Series, it's like there's no way they could go down. And I said that too when things were starting to get a little bit dicey there, and sure enough they have. So
where do you see things like? I feel it was growing at a rapid rate. During COVID, you have these horror stories that are coming up now. They're on the fence of like what regulations should be out there. To your point, maybe there should be the X amount of regulation. Not, like that's kind of the fun part of this space, right?
Yeah.
It's not your Chase, for example.
Yeah.
So a mix of all of this, where is the future of crypto going?
I see it being divergent. So it's a bit of a dichotomy, because I think you have this road, and in an ideal scenario, maybe this is me asking for too much, but I would like to have a bit of a menu of options where I can choose whether I want to trust a third party to hold ownership of my belongings, being my digital assets, being my crypto, or I could hold them myself. And what I don't want to see is a regression in my mind to requiring storage through third parties, or having the government, and that's a whole separate issue, is these stable coins, where now the government then wants to, like, well, if the government may say, well, if we can't beat them, then we'll join them. So now the only stable coin that you're licensed to use is the official US government stable coin, and basically creating the USD for crypto, which inherently defeats the purpose of crypto to begin with, to have the government in charge of it. So it could go a number of ways, I would hope, and I would like, and that's the government. That's a funny part when you listen to some of these government heads and leaders talk about crypto. You can just tell they have no idea what's going on or how it works.
Because they're like 99 years old.
Because you literally you can't regulate it. That's the funny part, is like you cannot go on the blockchain and say, hey, give me that. Like it's not how it works. So we're coming to a head for sure, and I hope that leaders decide to play ball with how we approach regulation and say, you know what, like we understand what this movement is, and we want to. We want to provide a safer alternative to that movement for those that may not have the risk appetite to, handle everything themselves. But at the same time, for those, we don't want to chase those that do. Like, yes, we have our reporting requirements, but we're not going to actively be, running like massive audits or KYCing, or we'll trust our users to report things in the way that tax law says that they should. And then you kind of have you have an and or type approach where you say, okay, well, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with this experience that you point out. I want to have it on a centralized exchange where I just give them my credit card, I buy crypto, and I'm done. Or I say I want to buy my crypto and then be off on my merry way and handle it all myself. Because to your point, user experience is a disaster. So you're going to need to have sort of that middle ground.
I was going to say, you almost need like a crypto advisor. It's like you need someone to almost like do that shit for you.
I got
someone teach you, bro, because there's a few coins where I'm like, I've talked to, shout out Rich. I was like, I was like, bro, how do I sell this shit? There's a different story.
Are you talking about cakes?
No, I had Safe Moon. And I
Okay,
remember,
so
I was
yeah.
like, bro, can you explain to me how to sell this shit?
My favorite is pancake. Some of these shit
Pancake
coins-
swap.
I had to do it.
Yeah.
So you're like,
He taught me how to use that.
You gotta buy them on Binance.
Yo,
you
that
gotta
shit was
VPN.
crazy, bro. That shit was crazy.
Because
Yeah.
there's Binance and then there's like BNB and there's like BNC.
Yeah,
I was thinking to the wrong
you gotta
one.
then
I
buy
was
a
like,
cake. You gotta take your cakes in the syrup pool. Then you flip your
I'm
cakes.
pretty sure.
Bro.
I'm pretty sure I got money on all these different wallets, and I don't really even know. Like, is this one compatible with this one? Is this one fuck this one? Like what goes with what? Like,
Yeah, the different chains. Like if you send like an ETH coin onto a BNB into a BNB
I'm telling you.
my
address.
head already hurts, bro.
You literally need to like read. I mean, maybe this is your next business venture, dude. Like crypto for dummies.
Yeah.
You know, like this is how to use this
begin
wallet.
to explain it.
Yeah.
Bro, it's such a
I'm
pain.
still making shit up as I
Yeah.
go. Shit.
Hey, listen, guys, we had a lot of fun today with Sam. Make sure you guys go follow him. All his links will be in the description. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Thanks.